realmente que decirle que sí se puede. Aprendí que no, de que me siento, de que a veces se me olvida, ¿no? Voy tan rápido
Sí.
y se me olvida decir de que qué orgullo, me debo de sentir orgullosa de lo que he logrado.
Sin duda. Pues, te agradecemos muchísimo, nos dejas, muchos aprendizajes. Yo en lo personal me llevo 2 que voy a empezar a llevar a poner en práctica desde hoy.
Mm.
Y bueno, esta es tu casa aquí en El Desnudo. Te deseamos muchísima suerte y te agradecemos todos los videos y todos los, esa motivación para mejorar la calidad de todas las personas que te vemos. Esperamos seguirte viendo en tus videos, síganla en sus redes sociales y nos vemos el próximo jueves aquí en Al Desnudo con Luz María Orsi, el lado humano del empresario.
Gracias.
This has been a Now Media Television feature presentation. All rights reserved. Broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world. You are watching Now Media Television.
Welcome to Your Personal Real Estate, the show that brings you all the inside scoop on the dynamic world of investing in real estate as well as buying and selling homes. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs. Today we want to touch on real estate agents and their resources for you, their clients. Now, the symbolic relationship between real estate agents and service providers is undeniably significant in the realm of the housing market. While real estate agents assist clients in finding their ideal homes, service providers contribute to making those homes truly feel like a sanctuary. The importance of fostering a strong bond between these two entities cannot be overstated, as it yields mutual benefits for both parties involved. Now, for starters, when real estate agents confidently recommend service providers to their clients, it leads to an increased customer base and expanded opportunities for service providers. The endorsements from a trusted real estate agent carries weight and instills confidence in the clients, giving service providers a competitive edge. Now remember, you should still interview the service provider that is recommended to ensure that they are a good fit for you. Now, moreover, the collaborative effort between real estate agents and service providers ultimately enhances the level of service provided to clients. Now, when real estate agents have established relationships with the service providers, they can promptly and efficiently cater to their clients' needs. Now, this seamless coordination ensures that clients receive timely and high-quality services, reinforcing the reputation of both the real estate agent and the service provider. Now, building a strong relationship between real estate agents and service providers can be accomplished through several key strategies. Their face-to-face introductions is a really great starting point, and you followed by, of course, the exchange of business cards and fostering professional rapport. In today's digital age, social media connections offer an additional challenge for maintaining regular communication and staying informed about each other's ventures. Another effective way to strengthen the bond is through mutual referrals. Now, when service providers recommend clients to real estate agents and vice versa, it's a great partnership. It reinforces the trust within that partnership. Acknowledging and rewarding such referrals further solidify the relationship and promotes a collaborative spirit. Regular and open communication between real estate agents and service providers is paramount to ensure seamless cooperation. Sharing information, updates, and feedback on ongoing projects enables both parties to remain well-informed and proactive in addressing any challenges that may arise. Now, in conclusion, the interdependence between the real estate agents and service providers is instrumental in their professional success. The partnership enhances business opportunities, elevates the quality of service provided to clients, and facilitates favorable outcomes. Embracing a spirit of collaboration and professionalism is the key to unlocking the full potential of this essential partnership. We will be right back after this commercial break.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are watching Now Media Television, the first bilingual media network in the United States.
El tema está en que los países...
Liderazgo y experiencia
Nuestro país debe meterse en las grandes discusiones y en los grandes debates.
son parte de una carrera exitosa.
Juegan dos estados.
Él es referente en el periodismo.
No definen el 2024.
Javier Solórzano te espera cada noche para llevarte las noticias, el análisis y las entrevistas más importantes de lo que sucede día a día en el país.
Este es el referente de la noche.
Welcome back, everyone, to Your Personal Real Estate. We are continuing our show today, and we have Andrew back with us. And the great thing about Andrew, he's not with us in studio. He is in Memphis. How are you doing today, Andrew?
I'm great, Michelle. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I know we're going to be talking about, the property that you're in right now and that turnkey and renovating, but I want to take a moment and I want you to reintroduce yourself to those that may have not seen the last show where we did introduce you. I want people to really know who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I'm Andrew Glisson. To everybody that's watching, I'm a real estate investor, entrepreneur. I started my real estate journey 4 years ago. I've developed a portfolio of over 200 properties. I've renovated over 150. Started from really the ground up. Didn't know anything about real estate. Jumped in, learned as much as I could. I'm now a real estate agent. I'm now a general contractor. Manage our own renovations, manage our own portfolio, and so I've kind of built the business over the last 4 years to a pretty good scale. And I'm actually taking the knowledge that I've learned in this whole business, and I'm helping others build their real estate career and fulfill their dreams through a program I've got called SFR University.
And they don't have to be with you in Tennessee, right? In Memphis. They can be anywhere with this program, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have clients from all over the place. In fact, we have a client in Israel. It's really kind of global. We've got a client in Israel. We've got a number of clients in Canada. We've had some folks reach out to us from all over Europe. And a lot of our, the clients that are in the program right now, I mean, they're from all over the place. They're from every, background, every state. We've got a lot of people that are in the program. And, we're trying to look, I don't want people to waste their money as they're buying properties, renovating. And there's a lot of ways that you can get taken advantage of. And so I built the program to help the regular investor, change their financial future for themselves and their family. And so that's really what it's all about.
I love that, because that is true. Real estate is definitely, it could potentially be generational wealth. All right, so today, should investors look for turnkey properties, to get ready for a renter or properties that need work? Like the one that you're in right now.
Yeah, look, I'm a huge proponent, and I talk about this all the time on social media, that people need to find a property that they can do something to, and they need to renovate it. They need to do something to that property to add value. Because if they're going to make their money work for them to the maximum degree, then they're going to have to do something to the property to reposition it in order to increase the value, pull their money out basically, and put it into the next project. And so if you are buying a property that's been turnkey, then the wholesalers made their money, the real estate agents made their money, the contractors made their money, and then the person who's selling it to you has made their money. So where's the money left for you? So I try to teach folks and talk about how if you guys can identify good opportunities and renovate them yourselves and do as much of the process as you can, then you can carve out a lot of those fees that everybody else takes. So a lot of people buy turnkey properties because it's really easy for them. Maybe they're out of state and they're buying properties in another state where they're not at. But there's a way, if you're doing that and you're investing in real estate, you can slowly carve back certain elements of that process like I did, so you can start identifying opportunities, doing the renovation yourself or through your team, and moving on. So, I mean, look, I've got properties and have renovated properties in other states a long way away. We just happen to be in Memphis where this property is right now, but we've done deals, bought properties and renovated them in a lot of different states. So it can be done even if you're an investor that doesn't have a ton of time on your hands full time like I am in the business.
Got it.
And you can hear the saw in the background because we got guys on scene right now.
I know. I was asking you about that before we got started today. I'm like, what is behind you? So when an investor is considered buying a distressed property, what are some of the red flags in that property to look for?
Yeah, so distressed is, a property that needs work. And that's what, a lot of people, that's a good term that a lot of people use, to identify these properties that, need that renovation work. And so, really there's different levels. And somebody on your team, if you're looking for an investment property that needs work, has got to go and identify issues within that property that are going to be important to address when you renovate. So some of the things that we look out for are, foundation issues, cracks foundation. There's a lot of budget busters, which is what I call them, that can take a normal renovation to $40,000 and add 20 grand to it almost immediately. So you're looking for sewer pipes. I tell people, run a camera through the sewer pipe when you're buying a property to see if there's any breaks in that sewer line. A lot of the homes that we buy are 1950s, 1960s houses. They have old terracotta sewer pipes. They're broken, tree roots get into them. And so you've got a lot of issues on your hands. If you don't find those problems before you start renovating, that could be $10,000 that you didn't budget for. A lot of these old houses in the 1950s have a lot of rotten wood below plumbing fixtures. So in the kitchen, behind the sink, under toilets, behind shower drains and shower fixtures, if they haven't fixed leaks in the past, then you're going to find a lot of rotten wood, in the floor framing and stuff like that. So, we do a lot of inspections, and I encourage people all over the place. When you're diligencing a property, do an inspection on that property to find some of those budget busters, the rotten wood, the cracked foundation, the sewer pipes that have issues. Water is a big budget buster. And so those are some of the things, red flag wise, that I look for when we're buying properties, and you should too.
Got it. How do you establish a budget for renovation projects? I mean, and more importantly, how do you stay in budget?
Yeah, so establishing a budget in the program, that we have SFR University, there's really 3 different categories of renovation that we talk about. There's the light touch, the demo and replace, and then the heavy lift. So for a light touch, I've got a nice grid where it shows you, based on the square footage, an estimate that you can anticipate being in, just kind of a rough estimate. And so like for 1,000 square feet, for instance, if you find a 1,000 square foot house and it's kind of a medium lift, demo and replace, you're pulling the kitchen out, you're pulling the bathroom out, on average, that renovation should cost you about 45 grand. And then, in addition to that 45, you're looking for some of those budget buster items that are going to add to that number. And so there is a framework that we use when we're looking at properties that are, less than 1,000 square feet, 1,000 square feet. It's really square footage based. And then it's, kind of that light touch. We're just doing painting, replacing, door handles, or ripping kitchens out, or there's structural issues we have to go in and fix. And so that's kind of how we look at building a budget. And when you get more experience, you do more renovations, like it becomes a little bit easier. You can look at a property and you can identify like exactly how much that's going to cost you to renovate. But before you get there, you've got to find a team of contractors to work with, to really kind of help you build a budget framework. And then talk them through those numbers. Like, does it make sense to you? Are they charging you 100 grand for something that's not that big of a renovation? So you have to kind of back into the numbers a little bit, talk to a lot of different contractors, find people you trust. I mean, it's a little bit of a process. Find a mentor like me that can help you, identify what you should be paying for certain projects, or somebody like me or my team. And we do that a lot. We help people in the course all the time, identify and build a framework for what a renovation would cost, depending on the size of the house, depending on when it was built, and really the market that it's in. LA is a lot more expensive than Memphis, for instance. Houston's a lot more expensive than Memphis. So that's a little bit of a rough, long answer. But if you're brand new starting out, it's hard and it's easy to get taken advantage of unless you have somebody that can kind of guide you through that process until you can learn it and get familiar with it comfortably.
That's true. And when you're working with general contractors, there's an aspect that one of the factors is if they have another job going, that could impact your home to be ready for market.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
Yeah, and I mean, general contractors will, some of them are great and they'll show up and really want to work with you and do a good job. And others are like, you're the lowest on the totem pole, bottom of my priority list, and I'm not going to come back to your job. I'll be there when I want to be. And that's hard. You've got to quickly identify that type of personality and take them off of your team. And I always tell people, look, talk to their clients and find out how responsive they are. And there's a lot of ways that you can weed out bad contractors, but you've got to make sure your project is going to be on the top of the priority.
Got it. So an investor buys a property that needs some work. What's the first step?
So it starts a long time before you buy it. The first step when you're buying a property that needs work is you have to send your team in to do an inspection. And I always tell people, if you're new at renovating, new at buying distressed assets, then we have a good inspection framework that we walk through that my team's built. It has over 200 questions that are incredibly detailed on every single little aspect of the project. We want to, through our inspection process, we're counting exactly how many electrical outlets there are, how many windows there are, doors, light switches, all the things that we want to replace. So our inspection document builds the framework for our renovation plan. And we start that as soon as somebody accepts our purchase and sale agreement, we're starting that inspection process. If you're new buying distressed assets, you need to spend the money to have a proper home inspection. Hire somebody that can do a crawl space inspection, that'll go into the attic, that'll send a drone up and look at the shingles. If you don't know anything about renovating, you need to spend the $500 or however much it costs to get a professional home inspection. And then you're going to want to do it again after the renovation project is over to make sure that plan that you commissioned was actually done. And so we've gotten a little bit better at that. We don't hire, the inspectors to go in, the professional inspectors before we renovate, because, we've built a pretty good plan. But that's really the first step, is you've got to assess what you have.
Right. Now, investors obviously want to get properties rented quickly. How do you make sure that the project gets done on time?
So this goes back to that, question from a few minutes ago, like, how do you make sure your contractor is going to prioritize your work? If you have a good relationship with your contractor and your construction crew, then you can reasonably trust those people that they're going to show up, they're going to be doing work every day, and they're going to get that project accomplished, under that timeline. We budget, just FYI, just a kind of rule of thumb, we budget about $10,000 per week on renovation projects. So if it's a $100,000 renovation, that project is probably going to take me about 3 months to do. And then, as you go down in price, your timeline speeds up. But one of the things that we did, we actually have lock boxes that are Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Every time a contractor shows up to our house and enters the keypad code in our lock box and accesses the house, we get an email. We know exactly when they show up. So we can keep people accountable to the timeline, because we know when when our vendors are actually showing up to do the work. And so if we see that they haven't been in a couple of days, then, we're making a phone call and providing some friendly pressure, like, hey, when are you guys going to show back up? Like, we have a deadline, and a timeline. And so there's different ways to do it, but you got to be there. Somebody's got to be present. If you don't have a lockbox like we do that's telling you when people are showing up, you got to show up and make sure that, you're accomplishing certain milestones at the right time to keep everybody on pace.
I love the lockbox. I love that. Now, we have a couple minutes left, so tell us about the worst project you've ever worked on.
So I might be in the worst project I've worked on ever. The project that I was in had a house fire, and we had to almost completely rebuild this property. And so we pulled every piece of wood out that was touched by the fire and put all new wood back in. This is over $150,000 renovation. This is tied with another one that we did around the corner, which cost us about $175,000. And it was this renovation project, not this one, but the other one I'm talking about. The owner of this property had let a hole in the roof from a limb about that big grow so large that the house partially collapsed on itself. And we had to go, a lot of people would have bulldozed this house. I don't like to do that. I like to rebuild houses in the original footprint because I like rebuilding structures. I'm not a new construction person. But we had to go in and reframe the whole thing, rebuild it. Significant code enforcement involvement. It was the absolute worst project. It took me 6 months. It took forever. But that house is great now. I mean, it's almost brand new, and people live in it to this day, and they love it. We've had great comments about how well done it was. But the two worst projects had happened, and I've finished in 2023. Or will finish in 2023. So I keep on buying worse and worse properties. As my renovation projects develop, I buy worse properties as we go.
Well, I hope you took before and after pictures.
Lots. I'll send you some.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Andrew, thank you again with being with us again today. I look forward to our next, more time together, our next show, and learning more about who you are, your business, and your program. So thank you again, Andrew.
Thanks for having me on. See you, Michelle.
And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
República H, con Sofía García.
Una república que necesita saber cuál es el camino correcto. En República H te diremos qué pasa en cada rincón del país. ¿Qué pasa en tu estado? ¿Qué hace tu gobernador, presidente municipal o alcalde en materia de seguridad, salud, desarrollo, economía o servicios básicos para atender a su población? Tenemos desplegados más de 70 corresponsales en todo el país y más allá de las fronteras. República H, de lunes a viernes a las 8 de la noche por Heraldo Televisión.
Palitos y Bolitas es la catedral de la explicación. Este programa es la única parada que necesitas para entender los porqués y cómo de todo lo que pasa en México y el mundo. Lunes a viernes, 7 p.m. por Heraldo Televisión.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, you have met Ann Tran before, and she was with us last week when we were talking about interest rates and discount points. There were so many things that we were talking about last week. This week, we're going to be talking more commercial side of things and the commercial loans versus residential loans. How are you doing, Ann?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back.
I love that you're back. Okay, so commercial. Now, I'm primarily residential. Now, I closed commercial transaction when I was in the title industry, and it's a different process. So Ann's going to be with us today and tell us a little bit about that difference. So what are the differences between commercial loan versus a residential loan?
So it's a very common question I get often. With Envoy Mortgage, we do mainly residential loans, but I can definitely touch base on a little bit of the differences on commercial loans. And so main thing to keep in mind with commercial loans is that it's not based on your personal income. It's based on the business or the property's income, the revenue that it generates. That's what they're going to assess in terms of how much to loan you. Another thing is to keep in mind is that your down payment requirement is not going to be 3 or 3.5%. It's going to be more like 25%, 15%, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, maybe even more depending on how you negotiate and structure your loan, because you may want a cheaper interest rate, and that will affect it. Another thing to consider in terms of commercial that your loan term is going to be amortized in a shorter period of time. So instead of like a 30-year mortgage loan, the cost of the loan is going to be spread out in those 30 years. It's going to be spread over 20 years maybe, and then it might be due in 5 to 15 years too. So these are things that you may want to consider if you if you don't have the funds to prepare for those moments. So if you are looking to buy a home with a commercial loan, which is not always doable, these are things in terms and fees you're going to have to consider. So.
Right. Well, so when you're needing brick and mortar for your restaurant or whatever that is, right? Whatever you're wanting to accomplish inside of a commercial transaction, a warehouse, a widget factory, if you will. I mean, those as she was saying, your down payments, it's not the norm. It's not the 20%. I mean, it's norm, the norm is more closer to 25, 30, 45%. I mean, it can get really costly. So those are factors, right? When you are doing your business plan, those are things that you look at when you're looking at commercial property. Now, what is a commercial loan good for? We've touched on a few things, but what are commercial loans really good for?
Normally they're basically mainly for larger businesses. Again, businesses. So in a sense, you want to either purchase, refinance, rehabilitate a business. A commercial loan is great for those purposes. Another thing I want to mention before we move into another topic is that commercial loans, when it comes to real estate investing, you can use a conventional loan for up to 4 units. So you can do a duplex with a conventional loan. So with not FHA loan is going to want you to use it for a primary residence. But with a conventional loan, you can use a conventional loan for a second property as an investment, up to 4 units. So you can do a duplex or a fourplex, pay 3% down payment, and hopefully get some revenue from those other units. And that's another way to structure your loan. But anything above 4 units, you're going to need a commercial loan. So something to think about if you're going to get into the multi-unit and real estate investing world.
Right. So you have your multi-units, right? Your apartment complexes, the commercial loans, again, for widgets, right? The warehouse. It's what other aspects of it? I mean, I think about, when I think about commercial, I just think about the big, the big buildings and all the shopping malls and the strip centers. I mean, that's basically what that is,
I
right?
think that's the majority of what people think commercial loans are good for, and commercial loans are really good for in terms of, like, say you run a business, it's been established, you need money for equipment. Maybe you need a commercial loan for, there's a loan out there to help you with payroll. So say, or accounts receivable, accounts payable, so you've got some time in there in order to receive money, you need some cushion money. There are loans available for that too that are commercial loans. So anything in terms of generating revenue, building a business, that's when you're going to think about getting a commercial loan. So.
Now we're talking about that. I was thinking, like, what is the difference between a commercial loan versus a small business loan? It's also, a business loan, but it's like the SBA. Is that correct?
Yes, a Small Business Administration Loan is what that is. That's what it stands for. And I believe the SBA loans, the U.S. SBA loans, are backed by federal government. So they have several great loan products for businesses that are starting up, businesses that are being started by minorities or women, or
There's so much to it.
So with that being said, so commercial loans, they're great for larger loan amounts that you need for an influx in your business. Whereas if you say you're a startup and maybe you just need $10,000 to $50,000 for your business, you want to look into a small business loan, whether with your bank, your credit union, or with the federal government. They all have products out there available for you. But also keep in mind those interest rates are going to be a little bit higher than a regular mortgage rate. You're looking between like 10, 15, sometimes even 25%, depending on your financial circumstances. So yes, if you are looking to start a business, you need some capital to get started with, one area would be looking into the U.S. SBA loans out there, and they have microloans. So look into those. But if you want a commercial loan, you've got like equipment you need to buy, you got a big multi-million-dollar company, there are commercial loans out there for you too. So reach out to your bank, credit unions, your mortgage brokers, they'll help you.
Excellent, excellent. So now you talked a little bit about the interest rates on the SBAs. Now, what is the interest rate on a business loan?
That's a good question because it's going to vary. Every bank institution is going to have different products that have different rates. So I would highly recommend that you shop around, find out what they offer, and kind of lost my train of thought there.
No, but I'm telling you, commercial is a whole nother animal. It's a whole nother, I say animal for just what popped in my head.
No, but
it's a different process than a residential. Like, it's completely different from what we know as residential. And when you know that like the back of your hand, and you know the process like the back of your hand, and you're stepping into something newly, it's so imperative that you do understand the process and what it takes to get us where it needs to be, and understanding what type of loan that you need for whatever you're out to accomplish inside of your business. Now, we talked about interest rates. Now, how does your financial situation affect the interest rate?
Yes, if you're a business owner, your financial situation is going to definitely influence your interest rate. Is that what you said? So they're going to want to know that they want to see that you've been in business for at least 2 years. Most lenders want to know that you've been generating revenue. They want to know your financial health, so they're going to look at your credit score as well, your debts, your assets. Oftentimes, if you have collateral like inventory or equipment that you can use to put against your loan, that looks good on you, might even give you a better interest rate as well. So those are some things to consider, think about.
Yeah, there's many pieces, moving parts to it. Now, so what other ways can someone can possibly get offered a better interest rate when you're looking at commercial?
Well, again, kind of almost the same routes when it comes to residential. You want to shop around. You want to reach out to your mortgage brokers out there, your commercial mortgage brokers out there. Talk to them, consult with them, be honest with them. Tell them what your plan is, what your objectives are, you definitely want to make sure your financial circumstances are in a good condition, like your credit score, all that stuff. That's an asset.
Oh yes, when it comes to paperwork, commercial transactions can take a very long time. I know that I've personally, when again talking about the title industry in the 2 decades, I've closed commercial transactions, and I've had a transaction take 12 months to complete, 8 months to complete. We've had one that took 18 months to complete. There's the feasibility, there's a process that you go through. And a lot of the times when you're working on commercial transactions, you're really working with attorneys, real estate attorneys, and that's understanding the process and the steps and all of that great stuff. So they can take a very, very long time. So your interest rate when you first reach out to your bank for the loan, it's going to be different when it really starts getting down to towards that closing date and time, right? After all the inspections are complete, the environmental.
It's a lot more rigorous. Yes.
It really is.
You look at all your documents, all your finances.
So so do you have to be in business to obtain a commercial loan?
Yes, for the most part you do. For big commercial loans, they want to see, again, at least 2 years of being in business. But there are some loans out there if you haven't been in business for 2 years, if you're just a startup. Again, look into the U.S. SBA loans out there, small business loans. Even banks are willing to consider small loans for you if you have your ducks in a row. So again, if you have a good business plan, you've got a good idea, you have established relationships with your bank, your credit union, and they believe in it, it's a possibility they might even give you a small little loan.
Yeah, a healthy book. Right, have a healthy book, and obviously the debts and paying bills. It's the same thing. They want to make sure that there's a little as risk as possible, especially with commercial. Restaurateurs. I mean, trust me, I love food. I'm a self-proclaimed foodie, but it's so hard. That industry is so hard. So they put their heart and their soul into this restaurant, and it doesn't survive. So that kind of is part of what that looks like.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
With the SBA loans. Now, we talked about SBA loans being small business administration loans. Okay. Now, what types of SBA loan programs are available for someone?
So I believe there's an SBA loan 7A, and that is about small businesses, startups, I believe. But anything below $50,000, though, there is an SBA microloan out there that's available for you to consider. There are 3 other SBA loans I know that's available too for various business reasons that you might need as a startup. Something to look into, something to research. Believe it or not, the government has a lot of programs out there available to help you start your business, help you grow your dreams and your goals. We just need to be guided in the right direction and have the right people in our path to tell us where to go. So
Got it.
Google.
Yeah, exactly. It's an amazing search engine, right? It'll tell you everything that you need to know, but don't trust everything on the internet. And thank you again for being with us today. We really do appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and everyone, we will be right back after this commercial break.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are watching Now Media Television, the first bilingual media network in the United States.
El tema está en los países.
Liderazgo y experiencia.
Nuestro país debe meterse en las grandes discusiones y en los grandes debates.
Son parte de una carrera exitosa.
Se juegan 2 estados.
Él es referente en el periodismo.
No definen el 2024.
Javier Solórzano te espera cada noche para llevarte las noticias, el análisis y las entrevistas más importantes de lo que sucede día a día en el país.
Este es el referente de la noche.
Welcome back, everyone, to Your Personal Real Estate. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs. We are continuing our show today with Jennifer Green. Now, she is the owner of Property House Partners. How are you doing today, Jennifer?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Well, this is the first time for you to be on the show with us, and I want to thank you so much for being with us. Now, today we're going to be talking about rehabbing a property. Now, tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so we're located in the Twin Cities area in Minnesota, and we've been in business for about 5.5 years or so. Mostly do wholesaling and flipping properties here in the metro. We have a 7-county area that we go around and just rehab and wholesale lots and lots of properties every year. It's been great.
I love it. Now, really identifying the right property for rehab. So that's this conversation today. So what's the key factors that should be considered when selecting a property for rehab?
I think it's really important to determine, I call it a buy box of what you're really looking for. So is it based on location? Is it based on the size of the home? Is it based on the rehab budget? I think you have to find a place that you're more than willing to go to, right? So avoiding some of those war zones is kind of what we call them. If you feel like your tools and your stuff's going to get stolen, you probably don't want to be there. Likewise, like I said, the location is going to be important. Somewhere that people want to live. I think also, the biggest things that people make a mistake on is when they buy. And I think that's one of the biggest things people need to avoid is you make your money when you purchase.
Right. Location, location, location. So talking about that, how does location impact the success of a rehab project?
One of the things I learned, and this was early in my career, was that if you are buying a house on a busy street, whether it's, off of a highway or off of a main, artery in a neighborhood, it's going to be really hard to sell that house. And I say that because I experienced that. It's just one of those things, gosh, we love your rehab, but it's on that busy street. Likewise, it's across from, commercial properties, gas stations, churches, schools. Sometimes that can impact the sale of a house. Those are some of the biggest things I always try to avoid when it comes to location.
Right. Now, what are some common pitfalls in property selection, and how can they be avoided?
I really think, kind of like to reiterate, is that bad area. I think also if you're buying a property and it's small, under 1,000 square feet, sometimes that's going to push people away. I typically like to go for that 3-bed, 2-bathroom starter home, being in that median area of where people are going, price point and area of where people are going to buy, because that's going to be your biggest amount of buyers. And so staying within that range is important. Now, if you find a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, but the rest of the area is like that, well, then that makes sense. But if you're looking around and that's the only one in the area, or there's maybe 1 or 2, it's not going to be the best purchase. So really thinking about the sale of the property before you even buying it is going to be extremely important.
That makes sense, right? After repair value, we talk about AVR, ARV. So, looking at the cost estimation and the budgeting of a rehab, now how do you accurately estimate a rehab cost? Like, what does that look like? Or do you have a set program that you use?
I do. I have, when I first started out, I knew a little bit about, estimating repairs, but I just have a tool calculator, much like everyone else kind of does. And then you can be used throughout the country, just make, differences based on what the, area is calling for. But one of the standard things, if you don't have access to one of those, one of the easiest things you can do is just sort of do an estimate versus the square footage. And so a lot of the times, if the house is pre-1950s build, you're going to have to go up in your numbers per square foot. And depending on where you are in the nation, it can be anywhere from $70 to $90 a square foot. Likewise, if it's over that, period of time, then it could be anywhere from, depending also too on how you're rehabbing it. If you're rehabbing it for, a home buyer, or if you're rehabbing it as a rental, that can be anywhere from $30 to $50 a square foot.
Right. Now, what are some tips for staying within that rehab budget?
I think one of the biggest things that people have to keep in mind, some of the biggest mistakes, right, that I always try to avoid, I think I said this before too, is when you're buying, you make your money on the buy side. People sometimes also go a little bit too inflated with their ARVs on the sell side. I'm usually super conservative, 10% under what the majority of the market is going to be selling at, just because you never know what's going to happen, right? It could be a great time to sell, or you could maybe hit that small dip and then your profit goes all the way. So when it comes to then that rehab number, I will do my rehab and then either 10 to 15% on top of that for contingency. Usually 15% if it's a pre-1950. Over that, usually about 10%. Now, again, sometimes when I first started out, I sometimes did 20% because I wasn't really sure of my numbers. But now that I've walked through thousands of houses, I kind of know exactly what it's going to be. But that one thing is underestimating your repairs and then not putting something in contingency if you go over is the thing I've seen with so many people, that they're like, I ran out of money and I can't finish it. And then a lot of the times it's come save me out of this position because I can't do anything.
That does happen for sure. Now, when you're looking at the budget for a property that you have, are there certain, or do you use the same hardware, the same doors, same windows, same flooring, or do you basically design it around the area or what you're looking to achieve inside of the rehab?
Typically, we're using the same materials for all of the houses. Sometimes we're changing out hardware, the oil rub bronze or brushed nickel or brass or gold or whatever it is. Sometimes on those higher price points, though, then I will go more custom because we need to do that in order to get the ARV that we want to. But the median price range for us, where we're located, is somewhere between about $300,000 and $400,000. And a lot of those houses are the same thing over and over again. Sometimes I'll maybe switch out countertops, just because of what the other, houses are showing, but I'm never going to overdo it in a property. Never. Because you're never going to make that money back. And so making sure that we're doing the rehab to what is in that community and what that neighborhood is looking for is exactly what you want to do, and not overdo it or underdo it.
Right. Now, how do you handle unexpected expenses during your rehab project? We just have a minute, but I wanted to definitely touch on this before we ended our segment today.
Sure. That's that contingency budget. If you're not putting enough money in there, like I said, that 10 to 15%, and not using that towards your ARV, then you're going to go upside down. That's just what it's about.
Right. And that we do not want that to happen. So talk a little bit. Now you said the average median price or average price in your area was $300 to $400. Is that for the area that you're in, or is that speaking to the rehab homes that you purchase?
So that's the area I'm in. We usually stick to that median just because we know that there's going to be the most buyers in that pool. However, I've done houses that are less than that, and I do houses that are more than that. In fact, we have 2 that we're working on right now that are higher than that price point, which are going to be a little bit more of a custom finish. But then we have 2 other ones also that are right in that median price range, and those go a lot faster than those custom properties.
How many properties do you have right now that you're rehabbing?
5.
I love it. Well, Jennifer, you definitely know your business. You have 5 going at the same time. You have some solid contractors and some solid resources and relationships. So thank you so much for being with us today. I look forward to the opportunity to have you back on to even deep dive further as to what it really looks like when you're rehabbing a home.
Absolutely. I'd love that. Thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
República H, con Sofía García.
Una república que necesita saber cuál es el camino correcto. En República H te diremos qué pasa en cada rincón del país. ¿Qué pasa en tu estado? ¿Qué hace tu gobernador, presidente municipal o alcalde en materia de seguridad, salud, desarrollo, economía o servicios básicos para atender a su población? Tenemos desplegados más de 70 corresponsales en todo el país y más allá de las fronteras. República H, de lunes a viernes a las 8 de la noche por Heraldo Televisión.
Palitos y Bolitas es la catedral de la explicación. Este programa es la única parada que necesitas para entender los porqués y cómo de todo lo que pasa en México y el mundo. Lunes a viernes, 7 p.m. por Heraldo Televisión.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, our next guest is Saji Salam. Now, Saji's been with us before, and he is the principal at Care Venture Capital. Today, we're going to be speaking with Saji regarding REITs. Now, Saji, what are REITs?
Thank you for that question. REITs are basically real estate investment trust, and it's a company that essentially owns and operates or finances income-producing properties. They are good because they generate a steady income stream for investors, but offer a little way in the way of capital appreciation. Most REITs are publicly traded like stocks, which makes them very liquid. And REITs invest in most real estate assets like apartments, hotels, medical centers, retail centers, etc., and then pay most of the profit as dividends to the investors.
Now, what different types of REITs are out there?
There are two ways of classifying the different types of REITs. One is based on how and where they invest. So there are some REITs that invest in equity. So they basically own and manage income-producing assets. So that is that's the equity model in REIT investment. Then you have the mortgage REITs. They are lenders and who finance the real estate operators through mortgages and loans, and that's kind of what the mortgage REITs do. And then there's a third variety, which is the hybrid variety, which is they use strategies, which is whereby they invest in both equity and mortgage. So those are the three types of REITs based on how or where they invest. And in terms of how they are traded, there are 2-3 types, but those which are more common are the public traded REITs. So for the public traded REITs, you can buy the shares, on the national exchanges. So they are bought and sold by individual investors. Then there are the type of REITs which are not really listed on the stock exchange as well. So they are not publicly traded. So those are the broadly two types of REITs from how they are traded.
Now, Saji, let's talk about financial underwriting. I mean, what does that entail?
So basically, a couple of things that we need to look for in financial underwriting of commercial real estate assets is, of course, the top line, which is how much income is the property generating. And then we will look at the expenses as to how much we are spending, and then we come down to the net operating income. So to get to here, we are typically provided a T12 or trailing 12-month P&L of the asset. So we would look at the P&L for the last 12 months, and that is kind of our baseline. And in some cases, we also look at the T12 from 2-3 years ago, just to understand how the property has been trending. But once we get a T12, we look at the income, which is, hey, how much rents are we collecting? How much other income are we collecting, like pet rents, pet fees, late fees, admin fees, application fees. So there's a whole bunch of other income that will be there on the financial statement. Then we look at situations where we have reimbursement of things like water bill or electricity bill, whereby the tenants are paying for the electricity and water. So those are things that we would look for. And then we move on to the expenses side. So you have utilities, you have other expenses for maintenance. So all of those will show up in your T12 and your P&L. So some of these are expenses that you can control, right? You can control some of the maintenance cost. You can control some of the utilities. But there are certain items that you cannot control because that's outside of your realm. So things like insurance and property taxes, these are provided by those appropriate vendors. And then, there's once it is negotiated, especially the insurance, once it is negotiated and we finalize, there isn't much we can do about that. And property taxes, again, this is very much dependent on the county. And the most we can do is protest those property taxes. And then the county might say that, hey, yes, this time we are able to cut down on the property taxes a little bit based on your protest. But for the most part, the property taxes, insurance, once they are finalized, then there's not much room to move. So those are the other expenses that you would look for. And you add it all up, and then you will see the expenses out there. So we talked about the P&L, and we looked at the income and expenses. And so once we have these analyzed, then we come to the net operating income. So we look at how much the net operating income is. And then the key factor is what is now available to pay the what is available from the net operating income to pay your debt service. So we need to have, obviously we need to have enough money to pay for the debt service, and then we also need to look for what we can pay the investors. So those are the key pieces that we look at when we do a financial underwriting, to look at the income and expenses and other improvements that we do, like CapEx items that are there, that is capital expenditure items. Look at the net operating income, and then make sure that we have funds to pay debt service and also pay the investors.
Now, Saji, what are financing term sheets?
So term sheets are the documents that your lender provides you to say that, hey, this is your loan and these are the terms of the loan. So that's the simplest definition of the term sheets. They're not final yet, so this is just for you to understand what's coming your way. And many a time these term sheets are negotiable. So after a lot of back and forth on the term sheets, then we come to a final term sheet which we sign on, and that is what goes into your actual loan document. So let's look at what are the major components of a term sheet. So it will start with your loan amount. You want to know how much loan you're getting from the bank. There will be the terms in terms of the interest rates, and also the term of the loan itself, like it's for 3 years or 30 years. And then we talked about interest rate. So interest rate could be fixed or variable. So those items will be listed out in the term sheet as well. So you could have a 3-year floating rate, or you could have a mix of floating rate and fixed, or all fixed. So so these are some of the simple interest rate scenarios you would run to, but it can be more complex than that. And in many cases, and you would see that more and more these days, the lender would want you to buy a rate cap. So think of the rate cap as an insurance to protect you from the interest rate increases, which happen because of some of the policy decisions that the Fed takes. So when you have a rate cap agreement, you are able to literally protect yourself from that impact of those interest rate hikes. So that's what a rate cap agreement is. And then the term sheet would, in most cases, outline what kind of rate cap do you want to buy, how long is it for, what kind of strike right do you need. So those are the things that would be typically included in that rate cap part of the term sheet. And then moving on to some of the other reserves, you will have some indication there in the term sheet. So you will have deferred maintenance reserve. The other reserve you want to be looking at is the renovation reserve. So depending on the project, that apartment may have 100 units that need to be renovated, maybe 50 units. So depending on what that is, there'll be a renovation reserve that is set aside just to do the renovations. So there will be terms around the renovation reserve. How much of a renovation reserve are you getting? Is there anything that is being paid upfront at closing? And are you being charged interest on the reserves until you draw? And so there are so many of those nuances around the renovation reserve, and some of that language will be available in the term sheet. So then there is other language about the replacement reserve. So basically, you would dedicate a certain amount towards a replacement reserve, which is for, on your regular, on a regular usage of apartment, you'll be, there'll be wear and tear. You'll be replacing refrigerators and HVACs and such items which are considered replacement. And so there will be a replacement reserve that is set aside with every mortgage payment, and that actually will be refunded to you over 3 to 6 months, or depending on a certain limit that you fill the replacement reserve with. So those terms around how much replacement reserve is needed will also be included in the term sheet. There will be then more documentation around who the guarantors are, whether how much of the equity needs to be brought in by the guarantors. So there will be some language around that. There will be a completion guarantee that whatever we put out there in terms of the renovation, etc., are being completed. So there will be terms around that. There will be other terms around environmental indemnity. There will be some language around cash management. So many lenders would have what you call a soft lockbox account, which basically is to say that the bank can take control of that account. So in case of a default, or in situations where you're not able to make good with the terms of the loan, basically the lender can take on the property and the operations, and then all the money will go into this lockbox account. So that account will be set up, and then there will be terms around that. There'll be language around the property management company, and also about prepayment, which I think we discussed a little bit ahead, along with the exit fee, actually. So along with that, there's also tons of documentation required. But that loan documentation is a totally a different animal, and needs a different session altogether to deal with that.
Thank you so much, Saji. We learned so much from you. I mean, who knew REITs, right? So thank you for all of your knowledge, and we really do really appreciate you being with us. And everyone, we'll be right back after this commercial break.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are watching Now Media Television, the first bilingual media network in the United States.
El tema está en los países.
Liderazgo y experiencia
Nuestro país debe meterse en las grandes discusiones y en los grandes debates.
son parte de una carrera exitosa.
Juegan dos estados.
Él es referente en el periodismo.
No definen el 2024.
Javier Solórzano te espera cada noche para llevarte las noticias, el análisis y las entrevistas más importantes de lo que sucede día a día en el país.
Este es el referente de la noche.
Thank you to all of our guests today and to you, our viewers. This show airs Thursdays at 5 p.m., and we want to be your resource for all things real estate. Should you be looking to sell your house or buy a new home, I invite you to allow me to be service to you and your family. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs, and this is Your Personal Real Estate.